Hello. I'll pull my headphones off for this one. So it's a great Friday morning in Gothenburg, and now I'm home again from Stockholm. So my trip was pretty good. I usually make one or two mistakes whenever I travel, and this time it turns out that hey, I missed my checkout time, so I had to pay for another night. Hopefully the dirty dishes and stuff I left for the nice people at the hotel had a good trip because they stayed there for a few hours in luxury. Anywho, apart from that, my Klarna interviews and all that went well, and they offered me the job. They were going to talk to me today and just check how I feel about the visit and so forth. Overall, like, the interview process was very thorough. I'm very surprised that they didn't cavity search me or check my teeth or anything like that, because they checked everything else. And it kind of put me in like not a situation or anything like that. I'm fairly sure that I know what I want to do, but in essence, the only everything went smoothly, apart from the last bit where I had to I got some feedback that I couldn't really act on, and I was a little bit I'm going to talk to them because I was a little bit disappointed that I got some, almost everything was positive. The only thing that was a little bit a bit of criticism, wasn't all that constructive. It was very loose, and it felt to me like they had the manager had spoken to the engineers, and these engineers had said something that made him concerned, that which is I think it was kind of hilarious, but it was a little bit, I'm not saying insulting, because I understand that there are a lot of uncertainties, but when from both sides, so it's uncertain for me and it's uncertain for the people hiring. But in essence, I got the sensation that he was probing me for trying to figure out if I'm all talk, because they kept saying that my social skills were very strong. People thought I was a good culture fit and all that, and hopefully, if you're watching this and you know how the stereotypical engineer talks and behaves, you wouldn't, if you didn't know I was a programmer, would you suspect that I was a programmer? Maybe you would, but most people tell me that they think I'm in sales or politics or something. And so I know that I can talk, and for the most part I talk too much. I'm sorry about that. So that wasn't so much a concern, but what was a concern was that he kept asking, what do I do in a stressful situation? And I said that, stressful situation, if we have a tight deadline, the reason why I want to be a good team member and why I've emphasized the social part, I told him, was because most of the companies I talk to, they're I've already done the code test, so, and I do have a track record working at Ticketmaster, so obviously I need to be able to write something, I need to be able to produce code. I thought that was a given, but for them it wasn't, because he was afraid. I guess I asked him, are you saying that, because it feels to me like we are talking a lot about my social skills and soft skills, but it's, I want you to be very clear on that, I actually get shit done too, and then he kind of laughed and said, yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out here. And I'm I was a little bit insulted by that, I'm gonna say, because it felt, as I said, to me as if the guys who gave me the unconstructive feedback had probably scared him. That's my guess. That's what the sensation I got. And that kind of brings us to an interesting point, which is the same thing I've been saying with a few of the other tests I've done and the videos I've made. It's kind of, if you fail a test, or if you're doing something, I haven't gotten all of the job offers. For every job I was contacted about, I have been offered a position at more of them than I have than I have been rejected for. But the ones that I've been rejected for are, or not heard back from, why, like, and some people do this, and you have to ask yourself, if you're one of those people, don't assume that it's you who is the problem every time. Sometimes it is, and you should be humble enough to ask, like, what did I do wrong, or like, if you have that opportunity, that's why I was disappointed by the unconstructive feedback, because I can't learn from this now. I don't know what they were talking about. I can't figure out if it was something I said, or if, like, even though I got the job, I want to know, right? Because my suspicion is that the problem wasn't that I couldn't communicate. The problem was that they were really poor at communication. And that brings me on to the next thing I'm going to say. But anywho, you have to ask yourself, do you think it's you who was the problem, or is the process that the company is using the problem? Because remember now, when a few videos ago I was talking about a code test that I failed with, and then I finally just gave up because I didn't try to get the job as much as I should have. Like, I wasn't all that interested, and they dismissed me. And think about that. So they dismissed me, like, I failed that process, but I succeeded at Klarna, and I succeeded at My Services, and a few other companies. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Just because you fail something doesn't mean that you're the problem. Because, according to them, their code test, I can't code, but I can. Do you see? And I said that to the recruiter as well, when she was talking about, I thought you said that you're gonna fix this and like do the test and like, do really well. And I said, no, what I told you was that I don't want to sit and practice and have you coach me to pass a test. That's the difference. Because she was trying to coach me, and I said, that's not who I am. If I pass a code test, I want it to be because I know my stuff, not because I inflated my understanding by studying all the things for a job. Because I know for a fact that if your test is really difficult or whatever, then you're the problem. Because companies who are much larger than yours have hired me, and smaller companies as well. I'm not saying that I'm the best guy in the world, but I'm saying that I can do this for a living. And I suspect that if you have requirements that are even higher than what I've been challenged with so far, one of two things are true. Either your company needs something from me that I can't provide, or most likely you have a really rough and unevolved testing process. And that's going to give you a certain type of person, which is what brings me to my next point. The people who I was interviewed by last, which gave me this little smudge on my interview process, because everything else was sparkling. They had a role-playing game where basically I was supposed to be in a position where I was their tech expert, and I was going to help them build an application. And the problem was that I'm sorry, I know how this sounds, but I can't say it enough. I was put in a situation where I felt that they were very unprepared for this role play. And they made me feel like I didn't understand I couldn't understand what the test was about. Because let's face it, if the test was about like me trying to show that, hey, I can talk to customers, which was my initial thought, because they pretended to not know anything to start with, which was okay, and they spoke to me in a very like generic basic language type of way. I started by saying, okay, I'm avoiding all the technical jargon like React and Docker and like all that stuff, completely avoiding it. And I really got the sensation that, hey, they were questioning, does he even know how to code, because he's not using any jargon. And so I had to stop them and like say, I told them like outright, guys, I'm sorry, I have a very hard time figuring out when you're in character and when you're out of character, because they switched all the time. They jumped in and jumped out of character over and over, and I got really confused. And finally they said like, oh, it was good that you mentioned that, because we thought, you know, you can assume that we know all the jargon. And I'm like, well, you know, that was information I should have had when we started, because I spent like 10 minutes talking to you like you have no idea what code is. And, you know, then from there I started adding some jargon into the mix. And once again, I couldn't tell what they were testing, because think about it. If you're testing me for architecture, if that's what you wanted, they didn't say that outright. If that's what you want, then you know, being really technical and explaining everything in detail, that's one way of testing somebody. But then you need to present it in a way that makes you feel like that makes me understand that, oh, I can use technical jargon, and I can like really explain how I'm going to build this thing in like terms that I would explain it to my colleagues. That's one way of putting it. The other way is, as I said, oh, your test is about how well do you communicate with customers who don't have any tech skills. Because you can't have both. I can't talk to them in a technical manner and at the same time talk to them as if they have no idea no idea about tech. Do you see the like? It's two completely different types of tests at the same time, and yeah, I passed anyway. But I'm going to talk to them and see what was going on there, because I felt that it was a little bit unfair on me to have this situation. Either they were really good and this was the intention, but I got the sensation that it was more about them lacking social skills. And it's that's kind of what I was saying to the manager, that's why you want to have people in the team who are very social and like have a good understanding of the strengths and weaknesses of their of the team members. Because ideally, if I was in his position, I would have known that, all right, the first guys you sent me into an interview, they were a perfect fit for the interviewing process. They had the social skills to make the whole process go very smoothly, and they got a clear picture of who I was. These guys, not so much. They were more introverts, it seemed, or whatever. Which means that, you know, you're putting the entire that's going to damage the interviewing process. You don't put an introvert in a position where he or she needs to make a informed decision about somebody's personality or like a person, because that's the essence of it. An introvert is very poor at doing these things. Like, they are not good that's the whole point. That's the whole deal with being an introvert. You're not comfortable in these situations, and that's the sensation I got. But yeah, overall it went well, so hopefully I'll get some good feedback today. And now it's back to business as usual. Going to the gym, going to see what's happening on Monday with my services. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So back in Gothenburg.